Yeah. So we've all heard of the law of attraction. You know, we create the things, events, and people that come into our lives. Our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions produce energies, which in turn attract like energies. Negative energies attract negative energies, and positive energies attract positive energies. So we've all heard that. It's been like bubbling around the world for a while, but when you really think about that, really think about that every thought you have is affecting the universe and pulling to you what you're thinking. You know, um, every molecule is here to play with you, right? So everything is here to play with us and to mirror back to us what we're bringing to the world. That's a really powerful thought when you think about it. That, everything here is mirroring back to you how you're showing up, right? So it's your dream, right? It's your dream. And right now, science is saying that it's almost as if we're playing a video game. So if you take the emotion, as we were talking about just a second, out of it, and you realize that we're actually playing a video game, you're going to start playing differently, right? You're going to start playing with some strategy and paying attention to what you're interacting with versus taking everything so personally, right? Because the circumstances aren't about you winning necessarily. They're about you growing, right? So every time we hit something that's uncomfortable, that's a place for us to really pay attention to our being, how we're showing up, what our body is, how our body's reacting to what's showing up. And our thoughts, words create our physical world, right? Thoughts become molecules. Think about that. Science is proving that now. Thoughts become molecules. And like attracts like. So if we're sending molecules out around lack, they're going to coagulate with other molecules of lack, and they're going to come back and they're going to build your story, right? Each time we have a thought, the morphic field of like kind sends down the relating pieces to grant our wishes. So think about that. I mean, when you really think about that, that's like, all right, it's like cleaning out your closet for real, cleaning out the junk in your attic and really being diligent around what you are creating and what you're interacting with. This is one of my favorite writers, Florence Scovel Shinn. She says your word is your wand. She wrote in the 1920s. And she was super powerful manifester. And, she said, your word is your wand. So, literally, what we think and say quickly become where we choose to live, right? Literally. We have rich people that live like poor people who scrape by on every penny. We have healthy people that live like sick people. We have sick people that walk around as if they're fine. You know what I'm saying? It's all about how we interact with what we're thinking, right? Because if we take it literally, we're going to have it. We're going to have it in our lives. Worry is our strongest form of prayer. Now, when you really think about this, guys, our worry loops play over and over and over again. When we're talking our positive stuff, maybe it gets one play. Because usually people aren't that interested if you're talking about your goodness, or good things that are happening. It goes by really quickly and, they move on to some sort of disruptive piece. What I'd love to say to you is don't ever say your worries out loud to anyone. If you do, make sure it is a very reliable source, right? Because, we love to attach to worry, right? People will walk up to you, tell you you're worried, and then you walk over to someone else and say, oh, I'm worried so much about so-and-so. This whole thing's going on in her life. And then that person walks off, oh my God, I'm so worried about so-and-so, right? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't ever say it out loud. If somebody says, how are you? Say, I'm better today than I was yesterday. Today's better than, better and better and better, right? You just don't want to do it. If you're going to share your pain, make sure the person is chosen very with a lot of clarity and discernment, so that they're pulling you out of that rather than pulling, so they're pulling you to a morphic field that's going in a different way, not pulling down. Because what happens is, okay, so you've got a gal that's going through a divorce, right? And she goes and she talks to her friend. She may have been feeling sad, so she starts talking to her friend. Her friend starts putting her 2 cents worth in. By the end of the night, she's distraught. She's pissed off. She's, everything. Because this whole morphic field of everybody that ever has gotten a divorce has been pulled down to that table, right? And the problem went from this to this, right? And then we get over here, and then we act irrationally. We run to their house. We let the air out of their tires. We bang on their doors. We do all these things, right? That you wake up in the morning and you go, shit, what the fuck did I do? Really? Did I do that really? It's not yours. So that's often in those situations, you step back. When you start feeling emotion rearing like that, step back and say, is this mine? It's the most powerful thing you can ever, the words that are going to be the most powerful in your life, is this mine, right? Because then you step back and you go, oh, wait, no, that's not mine. Part of that's hers, part of that's the universe's, but this little kernel's mine. And when you step back into that, you're like, all right. So we have to be very careful, right? We have to be very careful of what we wish for. You've always heard that, right? Be careful what you wish for. I love old wives' tales because they're so grounded in universal law. Always. You can't disprove one of them. They're so metaphysically sound, right? But that's what happens a lot of times, is that we are putting out things, right? And wishing for things and praying for things and begging for things. And then, they show up in this discombobulated sort of way because we don't really have the clarity around it. And one second we're worrying about it, and the next second we're wishing about it. And, the world ends up showing up in chaos. So it requires diligence over our mind. Absolute diligence. And one of my favorite teachers, not from the, quote, traditional way that we receive him, but Jesus talks about universal law in such a succinct way. And he says, you get to God through your mind, right? We think it's action, we think it's all these things, but it's our mind. We have to clean it up. First things first, contractions. We've talked about that. Pull them out of your vocabulary, and just set up a red flag in your brain. A contraction comes across your lips, bleep, 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 pull it. Because the universe doesn't get contractions. And it doesn't understand negative words like never and what am I trying to say? I don't want, or I hate, or it just doesn't, right? It doesn't understand those words. So if you build a sentence like, I don't like blah, 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 take the contraction right out. What do you get? I like blah, blah, blah. And that's what happens. Because the universe isn't meant to be working in that space of negativity. It doesn't do it. When you're out in nature, nothing is out of sync. It never is. Like, you go out in nature, everything is working according to plan, except for us. And we step in and, stir things up, right? So, if you can't get out and meditate, go for a walk. And seriously, go to a place in nature where there are not a lot of people. And you don't have to do anything. It's not about sitting and doing your ohms and having your fingers like this and your legs crossed. No. You can just go be in nature by yourself next to a tree and be quiet and put your phone away. And 20 minutes later, you're going to be different. Because the tree has more wisdom than you're ever going to have. Right? And just think about it. If you choose to come back to the planet as a tree, the grace and power in that, to think about the fact that you could stand stock still for hundreds of years without the need to speak or defend yourself, I'm just saying. That's the most, to me, a tree is the most powerful energy here. And all it's doing is feeding us every second, right? It's just giving in every form. It's not asking for anything. So we have all the power. Every second there is a choice to be made. And every second it is your power to make that choice, right? And every choice you make changes your life. Every choice you make. So we look into the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. All persons have within them the power to change the conditions of their lives. Higher vibrations consume and transform lower ones. Thus, each of us can change the energies in our lives by understanding the laws and applying the principles in such a way as to effect change. So, right there, they're saying it's all ours. The way our life is showing up is our responsibility. Because no matter where you go, there you are, right? Like, you know, you can say, oh gosh, I hate this town. I'm going to move to here and life is going to be different. And then you get there and there you are. Like, you know, because you're going to attract the same people with different faces, the same circumstances with different people. You're just going to recreate it until you choose to release it. You know, just as you were talking with your mindfulness and the parents, because truly, you know, God loved parents. I am one, right? And I'm watching my daughter be a parent. And, you know, we create havoc in those poor little children by us not having our shit together, bottom line. You know, with us walking in with our baggage, you know, those people have to live 100 years with what we give them, right? You know, our default programming is absolutely complete by the age of 7. By the age of 7. So when we're trying to change our behaviors, we can't just look at like the surface and go, oh, I'm going to put a Band-Aid on right here and affect change. It's just going to show back up differently in another space. Pretty instantly, really, most often. So when we were talking about the parents piece, and you think about that, you know, the age of 7. So when you look back at your life and you look about where you are right now, and you look at what played in those early years of your life, you start seeing the cycles, right? And how they run. And trying to think of his name right now, but there's a great coach out there right now, Tony Robbins, that, you know, and I've said it too, over and over again. You know, if you're pulling a weed like feathers out everywhere, right? And each one of those broken weeds are roots can create a new plant, right? So when we're just like going in and off the top, like pulling like just little bits, then we're just feathering it. And it can come back bigger and bigger in multiple different places, right? Does that make sense? You know, it kind of splinters out and creates its own. We always have a choice, my friends. And here's the thing, like I don't think I have ever been so angry as standing in front of Deepak Chopra and him telling me that. You have a choice. Suffering is a choice. You know? And I was like, I didn't choose all the stuff that happened to me. And he goes, no, but you are choosing today. You're choosing today how you play with that, right? How you interact with that. Or if you do, right? Come on, my friend. Let's go. So, if we compare our brain to a computer, no matter how hard you try, you can't run a modern day program like Illustrator on an 80s computer, right? It's going to crash. So, we need an upgrade. We need an upgrade. And that's really what we're doing when we say we've got these programs from kindergarten running that are ruling our lives, right? And they're ruling our lives. When your back gets pushed to the wall and you come out like you're 7, or hollering and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum, or, you know, you see people, right? I'm like, oh, you're 13 right now, right? You're like having a temper tantrum, throwing a fit just like you're 13 because, you know, you hit a situation that throws you back to those blip spaces, right? So we're raising our vibration by deleting these old programs. Through mindful diligence, we can break out of our cycles and make new choices. So the law of relativity, which is our final one for tonight. Each person is given a series of problems, tests, or initiation lessons for the purpose of strengthening the light within. Each challenge stands to keep us connected to our hearts when moving through the circumstance. We're called to humbly hold our problems up with gratitude, for there's always someone whose situation is more complicated. It's all relative. See the difference in our circumstances when you look at it like that, right? I mean, you go to college and, you know, I never did it, but what is it that you do for a sorority or a fraternity or something? Pledge, right? You know, they're going to take you through all this initiation. Well, that's what we're doing. So when we take our circumstances personally and choose to struggle in them and struggle with them, we're just prolonging the space, right? We're just prolonging it. Sometimes for 40 years. 50 years, we're prolonging that space and not learning, right? So we're not advancing. That was a big one for me when I realized that, you know, all the things that I had encountered in my lifetime and looked at it from a place of growth versus a place of suffering and lack, very different. It's a very different space. Then you can go, yay. You know, this is more like looking at it like, okay, I'm playing a video game here. I'm really playing a game here. And if I'm playing a game, then a game is not worth playing if there's not challenges. We get bored and quit, right? So why do we think life should be different? Like with our life, we think that we should have this peaceful pond and never bump up against anything. And in reality, you'd be as bored as tears. You'd be bored to tears, right? Like, you know, because obviously we don't really, it'd be nice if we did learn from joy, but we don't often, right? So each lifetime is us raising to a higher skill level. Does that make sense? I mean, you can even watch in your lifetime how these, how your circumstances get less base and more heady, where you're having to like try and, you know, put the puzzle together in your head versus like this base on your feet kind of struggles. Anyway. And, you know, we each come with our own unique set of challenges each time. You know, whether it be our sexuality, whether it be our parents, whether it be how we're sexual abuse as a young child, like whatever it is, we're coming in, and especially right now, because we're entering a paradigm where karma is unwinding and struggle doesn't have to be anymore. And I forgot where I was going with that. Well, anyway, sorry. So the end goal is complete integration, right? What we're trying to do is integrate every experience you had and integrate the learning from it, so that when you're walking forward in full knowledge and in full, with your full wisdom of all your lifetimes. Right now we're in a paradigm where it's like remembering what you knew, which is a really powerful place. Like when you're meditating, that's a powerful question. Show me what I already know, right? Because in each one of these lifetimes, we have gone through this, right? These sets of challenges, and we have acquired the pieces and the knowledge to get out and move through them, right? So what I notice, I think often, is that we're living in this time frame where we feel like this 100 years is it, right? And so we're not going back and gathering up our previous knowledge, and we're playing the same game from this very elementary place, and we're playing the same round over and over again, a lot of us. You know, it's like we're hit and rewind and hit and rewind and hit and rewind, right? So it's really powerful when you're meditating to ask the question, show me what I already know, right? So that you can gather it up and be in your absolute full power. So we're trying to create this perfect circuit, right? So I like to think of an extension cord. When you peel back the rubber, there's all these little tiny, really fine wires, right, that work together to create this circuit of energy. And as the wires are broken by trauma, or they're broken by stress, or they're broken by whatever, disappointment, right? It makes the cord very unpredictable, very unreliable, right? That's you, right? That's us, right? We're unpredictable, unreliable, and a little bit scary sometimes because nobody knows how we're going to show up, right? So the whole purpose is to go back in and bring all these cords together and create this perfect circuit again, right? So we must be stripped clean of all that is no longer useful and necessary to be able to fit through that eye of the needle that we've heard of, right? The eye of the needle. When I think of the eye of the needle, I think you're going to have to be naked, right? You're going to have to be naked. You're going to have to be free of any sort of struggle. You're going to have to be able to walk on water by that point, right? To fit through that eye of the needle. As our connection improves, like as we gather all that up, we are deleting these old programs, we're healing these wires, right? Because I like to think when these wires are broken, that's almost where an emotion is kind of severed, emotional development is severed. That's when I see people showing up like as children, like 13 or 12 or, 5 or whatever, So that's really what we're trying to do is go back and heal all those little people in us. Because really, that's kind of what it is. It's like they're all little people. You can almost even go back and meet them and, tell them they're going to be fine. And so it's always your choice. You just have to make it.